This story occurred in our very first year of Focus Minnesota's existence. I was the director. It was quite meaningful for everyone, and it's been that way over the years, so it really set a tone for us.
We had a board meeting in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I was traveling with my very close friend, Brian Gerich.
And of course, being Californian, anything past September is cold in the rest of the country, so you come dressed in a coat and gloves and a scarf.
This was, to say the least, a very humble space. It was long and narrow and sort of twisted and turned a little bit. I wanted to make sure that they could feel comfortable leaving their things, bags, briefcases, whatever, in a certain area. That was true for most of the board members.
So the board came in, they took off their gloves and their scarves and their coats.
And went upstairs to the board meeting.
But one of my volunteers was helping a gentleman. And he came in, it was an off time, we hadn't been open in those hours, but he picked up his foot and showed me how his shoes were all torn. You know, they had holes in them. And it was raining, and all he wanted was a pair of dry shoes. So we brought him in, we found him some socks, and he tried some shoes on. Now, being in Minnesota, the clothing was important because the cold weather is coming.
And one of the volunteers came up to me and said, you know, one of the people getting some of our stuff, he just came in here for shoes, and he wants to thank the board because he's profusely thankful.
And he says, I'm a big person, and so often there isn't the right size for me. And today I was just looking for shoes, and here I found this coat that was there, and I looked at it and I thought, well, that might fit me. And I picked it up and I put it on, and it fit perfect. And then I put my hands into the pockets.
2 leather gloves come out. It's just like, it's like tailor-made for him.
And he said, I want to thank you all so much. And he was wearing this gorgeous overcoat and this scarf and these gloves. I'm looking back at the board members, and my dear friend Brian Gerich says, Charles, those are mine. And I said, oh no, what am I going to do now? Either I betray my closest friend, or I take this guy who obviously is incredibly grateful and say there are hundreds of other coats, but you can't have this one because it belongs to one of our board members.
So we all jump up, everyone's like, oh. And I thought it was my job to say to the gentleman, sir, I'm sorry, I can't give you that coat. We have others here, let us give you, but this actually belongs to someone. And Brian is sitting and he says very clearly, quietly but very clearly, no, let it go. I said, Brian, I have other coats to offer him. It was just a simple mistake. He said, no, let it go. He said, I want him to have that coat. And I think it was Charles who said, but that leaves you, it's cold outside, it's getting cold. And that weekend there was an enormous snowfall.
And we're in the car the next day. And I said, Brian, how could you do that? I couldn't have done it. He said, Charles, I am just grateful to God. If the volunteer didn't want to speak, I would have thought somebody stole my coat and everything, and I'd be angry about it. But God loves me so much that He gave me the opportunity to give it voluntarily.
The end of the story in terms of that weekend is I go out of the little driveway in the back, I get to the light, and this gentleman, the same gentleman, because at this point we all know this coat very well, is at a bus stop just across the street from the center. And he's on the phone. And I will never forget, he was speaking sort of loudly, and he's like, hey man, you'll never believe this coat that I have. You'll never believe this place. He looks up and it says Focus. It's Focus, Minnesota. And we don't know how far that coat went with this gentleman who came with torn up shoes, but that's sort of what it's all about.